Hi everyone, it's Jeanmarie with the HOA Advisory Group, working on my second blog today. I was thinking to myself, what am I going to talk about over the course of the last week? And the crazy thing about the job that we do is that there is always something to talk about. Something happening, something that's I think, actually newsworthy for people to share. But it is budget season. And with budget season comes a lot of anxiety for boards and homeowners. They don't fully understand the budget. They don't understand what the reserves are. They don't understand, where does my money go? Why do I have to spend this? And I wanted to really bring to light something that specifically happened to me that I wanted to share. So last week, I had a very difficult budget ratification process. It included increases to the operating, and it also included a special assessment for a new roof. And that included getting a loan and all kinds of other details. However, the next day after it passed, I get a phone call from a nice woman, and she said, I bought my unit 10 months ago. And she said, my real estate agent didn't tell me anything about this. And I said, well, it is there and it has been a conversation, but it also made me realize there are some places where I think people don't look to get clues of potential things that could be happening. Now, I think everybody kind of understands that condominiums and homeowners associations get something called a reserve study. And a reserve study is simply a look at all of the parts and pieces that the association, based on the governing documents, is responsible for. The common areas and the roofs, the siding, the window frames, the landscaping, the irrigation. It can be some of it's streets, some of it's driveways, some of it can be any number of things. And there can also be things added to a reserve study that for boards that need to plan on certain things moving ahead. And in that reserve study, in a resale certificate, in the budget packet that homeowners receive, there usually is something called an executive summary, and it would look something like this. It would say Reserve Executive Summary, and it has all these little parts and pieces in it that you can look at, and that's really critical information to be focusing in on. One, it says, what is the starting reserve balance that an association has? The other, it says, this is the thing, how much money does the association need to be fully funded? This association needs $1.7 million to meet the obligations ahead of them over the next 30 years. But what is important is that inside the reserve study is also life expectancy. There is 5 years left on the roof. There is 10 years left on the fencing. There is 25 years left on the siding. It varies wildly. And those are all calculated projections. Some might be less, some might be more, based on how well they've been maintained. But the other component in here is a little number, and this is 13.7% funded. Meaning, and they are at very high risk for an assessment. And they actually had to have one because they didn't have the money in order to do the roofs. And that meant that, and this is pretty much across the boards with most condominium associations. I see this a lot. I see them as being very underfunded, and they've been underfunded for a very, very, very long time. It's usually not something that happens in the last 1 or 2 months. This is years of underfunding, mostly because people don't want to they think that the most responsible thing they can do to keep their membership happy is to keep dues low. Well, unfortunately, that also creates a lot of issues down the road when cash is needed. And I'm probably going to do a series of things talking about how to plan. And planning doesn't necessarily mean cash, because very few associations have enough people that could actually fully fund a reserve. And so, and especially now, because some of these have been underfunded for 20 years. But there is a plan. Anyway, I wanted to bring this to your attention because one of the things that caught people off guard was in the state of Washington, and I don't know about other states, so just bear with me. We are required, when we send out a new budget that the board approves, to give an allocation, and it's an allocation disclosure. Some of them are done by the reserve people, some of them are done by the managers themselves. I like to do them myself because I like to have a hands-on exactly what it means. So this is a copy of one. And you'll see over here, this big negative right here. So this association is 1.7 million and some change negative to a fully funded reserve budget. But what this shows is how much that impacts every single unit. Some of it is 25,000, some of it's 30,000. That's how much each unit is in the hole. It started out in 2012 being at about $4,000 per unit. Now it's climbed to 25, 33, 34,000. And I would anticipate with inflation that's going to grow. That number came as a real shock to people. Yet it's been in every single reserve study since 2012. But oftentimes nobody fully understands it. They don't see it. The other thing that the budgets do is they also tell you what, if they have a percentage, it should tell you what the percentage per everyone is paying. They'll tell you what the dues are. And then it should break it down and say what percentage of your dues are going to operating and what percentage of your dues are going into the reserves. And that calculation in the reserves is really important because sometimes it's the operating that can hold fairly steady, but the increases oftentimes should be systematically going into the reserves and building on the reserves, and that's not happening. So when this woman found out she was $25,000 in arrears to the for her unit for this association, she was a little taken aback and she was very worried because she said, nobody's going to want to buy my unit. And I said, well, I don't know that that's necessarily true. I said, but what is more important is that the association identifies at last fully that they are very underfunded and they have a plan. They have a 5-year plan. And I would encourage anyone who has been looking at the reserves and going, we don't know what to do because in 5 years we need a new roof and we're not going to have the money. You don't start in 5 years. You start now. You start planning a 5-year. So when you get there to 5 years, if that's what you need to do, that's when you execute. And everybody has been working towards that assessment that they know is going to be coming. And you don't know what that assessment might look like. 9 times out of 10, it might be a loan. But you need to start the process now. Anyway, I know that's a lot to digest, and it's very, it's very big in its overview. But I would like, especially my realtor friends out there, to really look at these executive summaries of the reserves and get an idea so your people have a full understanding. And homeowners, you need to do the same thing. I get it. Nobody wants to have their dues raised, but it's important that you are at least more than 13% funded, because 1.7 million, that's a lot of money and it's growing quickly. Anyway, I'm Jeanmarie with the HOA Advisory Group. Please like me on my Facebook page. You can visit me if you have any questions at all at the HOAadvisorygroup.com. I would love to have people send me questions that they would like for me to talk on. I think I have 175 ideas, but this one came up, wasn't on the list. Anyway, have a great day, everyone. Bye.